Hi, everybody. Welcome to this August 2023 non-dual astrology reading. I'm going to try and be quite brief this time. In the Northern Hemisphere, a lot of people are on holiday, people have less time, everything seems quite fluid. And I just want to confess that I have definitely felt in quite a deep quantum collective process lately, and I'm gonna talk about that later. So it's been almost a challenge to do anything but what is urgent, what's in front of me. And I've spoken to a lot of people who are finding it very hard to be um, dynamic or to have a long attention span. And a lot of people are feeling the surfacing of a lot of latent trauma. Okay, so I've got a lot of clients who've been in touch with me recently. A few days ago, I just felt this sense of dysregulation, and there was no necessary stressor around me. And luckily, I spoke to other people, and they were all feeling the same that way that day. So I do think that we're going through something that's very, very important. And I'm grateful that I'm doing a deep pranayama practice, which is giving me a lot of prana to move through these days. But yeah, if you're feeling a little bit unmotivated, very short attention span, your body feels like it could start shaking at any moment, you feel anxiety, you feel like you're letting your team down, you feel like you don't know what's next. This is quite common for a lot of people who are pretty energetically sensitive at the moment. And a lot of the time, this is something that we can also see in our astrology, but also often it's also because we're tapping into the collective psyche as well. So I'm just going to say that our team is around if you need any support. We've definitely had an influx of people saying, I'm moving through something very big right now, I need support. And we've got quite a lot of practitioners now in our team doing very deep and affordable interventions. So if you need something, please get in touch with Dharma Stars, because during the month of August, we can offer you brain spotting, which is a really amazing, very effective trauma healing modality. We also have quantum art therapy and Seikhem healings available. I'm back online in September and available to do very deep soul work, but I do actually suggest that people, maybe if they're feeling wobbly, get stabilized first so that we can go deeper. So do get in touch. You can check out our offerings and also our courses that are coming for the autumn on there on Dharma Stars. But yes, you are not alone, but I do think that we are going through a little bit of this blurring from the year lord in the Dreamspell calendar, from the red self-existing moon into the white overtone wizard. And we're going to be talking about that in a little minute. I have said in previous transmissions that, we never fully in just one energy. We're always, your energy moves in waves. So we've still got this weaving that's very much about this remembering who we are, the legacy of our ancestors, working through that, this deep process of self-remembrance to actually strip away a lot of those afflictions and those burdens that have really kept us from being on our highest dharma for a long time. And now we're in a new year, which is about really surrendering and also becoming a timeless being and finding our more multidimensional self. But it's a year where we have to work at that. And a lot of this is this reclamation of our yin yang nature, not just a yang doer, but also this energy of the dream time, the collective consciousness, the void, the cosmic womb. Some of these places that people speak of, the Dharmakaya, these non-conceptual realms where so much actually occurs from a non-egoic state of being, a non-contracted, non-karma-ridden, more expanded state of being. And it's not been our default for however many thousands of years to be that. So Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time, as we had this series of eclipses earlier this year, which many people were saying were really a spark to start to dismantle the outmoded aspects of the patriarchy. And for me, the outmoded aspects of the patriarchy are too much yang in our life. The legacy of territorialism, the legacy of decolonization, or sorry, the legacy of colonization and the need to colonize, and this addiction to doing and conquering and competing and overstepping the mark, and the addiction to fast, 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 do, rather than being. Okay. So this is something we have to work at, and that's very much the sort of soup sometimes call it mono-blob. It's when we are incapable of doing anything but showing up in that singular moment, and we cannot multitask. That is switched off. We just have to be, and there's so much that takes place in those spaces. I've really learned this over time. We usually go to this negative self-talk about, this is either something wrong with me when I'm here, I'm broken. But when it's like a chrysalis where something's slowing down, and often a lot is actually helping, shifting in our multidimensional self, and we just can't even see it because we're just being. So we're monoblobbing, and I've definitely had this kind of monoblob thing going on. And I also see this, of course, in the wave spells that we're coming into, the trisenas that we're coming into, and the we also have had and we're in the middle of a Saturn-Mars aspecting in Vedic astrology. So we're going to talk a little bit about those, because sometimes if you can forgive yourself for being absolutely present for what the timeline is giving you, you can make more out of your monoblob, okay? Monoblob brings great things. We have learned this. And now when I have monoblob, I like to check in with other people. It's always good to find, are other people feeling the same as me? Oh, wow, lots of people feel the same. This is a collective thing. Okay, something's going to come out of this. And of course, as natural law always outlines, nothing is permanent. So really do surrender to your monoblob if it's coming. What I have learned over the years of monoblobbing is that sometimes I'm thinking, I've really not delivered my outcomes of what I said I was going to do this month. And that's certainly what happened for me much of July. I've had some great gold in my life. I'm having some really amazing endings. But if I was looking at, okay, wow, I said I was going to do this and I totally launched that out, I would feel a failure. Now, actually, I know that I've been doing a lot of sadhana, and I have been doing a lot of client work and holding space for other people's monoblobs and things. But yeah, it's not been like go, 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 right? So I just really wanted to give you permission, if you're feeling this at the moment, to know that this too shall pass. And what I've observed when I'm in these states is when this completes, I suddenly have this new lease of life, and my more Martian drive really kicks in, and I'm very efficient. Okay, I've always find that when the universe splats us, we're going to make up the time. Don't worry, it's all perfect. We have time. And this is something that's really important to remember in this day and age. If you start to realize it's all perfect, if you are functioning only on patriarchal outcome-based directives, you are going to struggle. But if you actually realize that the universe is going to let you make it up, and actually it's all perfect, you can actually enjoy your monoblob and just kind of bounce off walls and dribble a little bit. It's no problem, okay? So I'm going to move into just a couple of things. As we know, Saturn is retrograde. So, the master of karma is in Aquarius and retrograding in Aquarius. And this is in Vedic astrology I'm just going to speak of. So there's a lot about what is the society we wish to strive for? What is the new way? How do we enter that? And possibly paradigms that we thought we were creating, there's a hold on those as we go into a very, very deep review of what that means to us to step into a more humanitarian society. Things like cryptocurrency, quantum technologies, all of these things are very Aquarian age. And I know a lot of amazing people who've been working as vanguards in the field for a long time. And I dare say that a lot of these innovations that sometimes have flaws are back for review right now, okay? And obviously each of us is going to be affected by this in our own personal way, depending on where Aquarius is in our chart. Is it our fourth house? Is it our ninth house? Etc. etc. And you know, Saturn is the master of time. He slows things down, but he's really going to help us to expand into something. We're getting some great teachings right now, and this retrospective on things that's going to really help us to truly investigate what does an Aquarian age mean for us and our own personal relationship to what Aquarius is. So that's going on until November. And then we've also got Venus retrograde, which started just before the new galactic year in the Dreamspell calendar. And certainly, I know that a lot of us were starting to have these kind of essences of Mono-blob coming through. But I think personally, I really realized it kick in more around the time of the 26th, 27th, when the new galactic year started in the Dreamspell calendar. I really feel I need to mention also that in Western astrology, we've got Chiron also going retrograde. And this is all bringing up a lot around the concept of our wounds. Chiron is the wounded healer. Venus is a lot about love, relating, sensuality, the external world, comfort, possessions in terms of luxury, some aspects of our creativity. And of course, where we have that in our chart is also going to be bringing up a lot. But I know quite a lot of people have been having flashbacks to little ouch moments from childhood that they buried that may have seemed insignificant, but may have been things like being bullied by members of the opposite sex, or being ridiculed for something, or just strange. A lot of it's about relationship. And what we've had as well in the last couple of months, if you've been following these forecasts, is this sense of a lot coming up around the interpersonal that's up for review. So wounded healer plus our interpersonal planet, Venus, being both in retrograde, there's a lot of review happening. And as I've said, there's a lot of this tapping into the collective pain body, the collective trauma body, and the personal and an ancestral trauma body that's kicking in. And we're going to be talking in a little minute about Venus and its position during its retrograde, because I think this is very important at this time. So on to the dream spells that we're going through this month. We came into the new galactic year, which I've spoken of, on the 26th of July. So this is this overtone wizard energy, which is all about timelessness, receptivity, surrendering, finding, we're in this timeless void. If you're in Mono-blob right now, as I say, I'm finding I can only turn up in the second. I'm just, and we hear about a lot of masters who just live, they just be in the moment. They're not planning. They're not trying to micromanage their lives. I do feel that this is something to try to show us you can show up and just follow the guidance of the day to be. My micromanager is definitely on holidays, right? Which is why it's taken me to the 31st to make this transmission. And normally I make it days before. And I actually started making this presentation over a month ago. Okay. Now, what's really, really interesting is that in the Dreamspell calendar, we're just finishing off being in the White Dog Wavespell. And White Dog is very much about love and loyalty. It's about friendships and relationships. So this whole concept of the interpersonal and the Venusian and possibly the Chiron, the ouch around our relationships is really, really up. Now, White Dog dog is a pack animal. And one of the shadows of dog is that it sometimes doesn't quite know where its boundaries end and the other pack animal begins. And it sometimes doesn't have good boundaries. It's a little bit like the empath that we hear a lot of. An empath that struggles to find boundaries, sometimes doesn't know how to have a sacred no for things. And the dog can be prone to addictions and codependency. So I think a lot is up around our concepts of codependency. The yearning for soul tribe is definitely up. I've had a lot of clients in the last week who've just really looking at things like witch wound, being isolated in their community. Why is it that when we go through an awakening, we're always on our own, And I was saying, this is the sacred law. It's very intelligent that each village must have a spiritual weirdo, that they're all demographically placed so that there's a lot you have to do on your own, okay? And that's definitely been an ouch for a lot of people in the last week or so. So, yeah, it's so amazing with this wizard energy, the timelessness, the surrendering, this relationship to Venus, to Chiron. We're really in this soup of that sort of boundaryless void of, it is like a blob, or like a chrysalis being a blob, okay? And that is going to give way to blue night, which is from the 4th to the 16th. And this is very much the dreamer of the Tolkien. And this also is connected to our intuition, our ability to access these liminal states of being. And actually, from learning a lot from the grandmothers, both as an essence of a field and in places like Australia and many elders around the world, this whole concept of dreaming before we do is the ultimate essence of, this is called the grandmother's dreaming. It's this knitting of the fabric of society and coming into a collective field and not an egoic field. And so this is where we enter true abundance. A lot of people are based work on manifesting. They're like, I need to make this much money. I need a certain look. I need this. And that's based on lack, okay? When we come into true dreaming, we are abundant in the universe because we go into a non-conceptual state for the collective, and it draws down divine abundance, okay? There's a problem when people try to make tangible abundance that takes them out of the spirituality because they're fixated on a material paradigm and how something has a quantity or has a certain look. When we work with the night energy, we go into that collective dream state, which is true surrender, and it's a transmission state and unto itself. And this is where, if we want to reach a higher timeline, this is where a lot of us need to go into these programming states that are without concept, okay, without material paradigms, but actually create form, okay? This is creator beings at their best, okay? So that is up. So we've got this really soupy energy still continuing, but there's, out of this kind of chrysalis of this blobby essence, there's now going to be this stepping into a sense of agency, but not the sense of agency that is attached to the yang paradigm, okay? So this is going to be really exciting, I feel. And then we come into the yellow warrior, okay? And the warrior moves through trauma. It's fearless. It's also a conduit for cosmic consciousness. And I do a lot of quantum work when I'm in the warrior, and I have warrior in my sign. And this deepens the night energy of this kind of dreaming and weaving. The night, the warrior is more about kind of the transmission state. And also it's got this fearlessness to step forth as like a Shambhala warrior. And I see this often as overcoming key traumas. And what's interesting is then it moves into red moon. And we just came out of a red moon year, which is a lot more about the unconscious and the stuff that's still left. It can be our trauma, but a lot of deep inner knowing, okay? It's very yin energy. So we have this period of more determination between the 17th and the 29th. And it's almost like we go through one completion, and this is the completion of a castle for Wavespells in the Dreamspell calendar. Then we start the new castle with the red moon, and a whole new batch of insights and teachings will come up in that next 52 days. In the sacred calendar, what's really interesting, if you just look, so we've got bats, which is also connected to weaving with time, okay? So we've got 4th to the 16th, we've got the Blue Night Wavespell, and there's a crossover with night and bats, which I think is really, really potent, because it is seen that there's a primordial essence with the night as an energy, and bats moves into this more creative weaving of the fabric. There's a doing with the weaving. There's a little bit more agency that's applied. it's a very deep time that we've got both of those showing up in these systems, that especially between the 4th and the 9th, we have this potent window, and that is right at the Lion's Gate portal. We have a very, very strong period of time for manifesting without concept, but for the greater good, okay? And dancing through space and time. And we are benefited by the fact that we now have this year lord of the wizard to assist us, okay? So this is going to be, I think, a very potent time in the collective conscious, okay? And then we come into to Cat, which is about the net. And this is a lot more about, it is seen as beginning to gather the harvest. And this is Cat here, carrying its net. It's also about letting go of the burdens, and that those burdens can be the burdens of the past. This can be the ancestral burdens that many of us feel accumulating and wanting to move through the body, that are really up, like this portal that's still open as we are in this transition realm between self-existing moon year and white overtone wizard. Okay, so there's a sense of that there has to be a sense of agency for the collective with Cat. Cat has it's pretty altruistic in terms of being for community. Okay, so we're starting to, from those days, reap some stability from the time we were in, and this is also mirroring with the warrior. We're able to step forward a little bit better in the middle of the month, and then we come into Noch from the 23rd of August to the 4th of September. And it's almost like this cosmic soup we've been in, and this clearing, leaving of burdens and sowing of seeds helps us to have a new approach, a new inspiration, a new tangible way to solve our problems. And for those of you in the global north, it's back to school time. It's really funny, like every year, August is a bit of a write-off in terms of trying to do much with people or events, unless it's all being booked in. People go to festivals, all of these sorts of things. People are away with their kids, so you don't have a stable, anchored group in anything. And it's almost like there's a back to school vibe, okay, where all the insights that we've gathered from these liminal spaces are now coming into essence, okay? And yeah, in Vedic astrology, this is all very interesting. I spoke about Saturn being retrograde, so it's almost like we're assessing things, we're reviewing it sometimes without even knowing what we're reviewing. Also, earlier last month we had Ketu coming into Chitra, and I didn't speak about it in that monthly, but I'll just speak about it here. So Ketu is the headless part of the karmic serpent. And in many ways, it also represents past life energy and karma that has been brought through to this life. And as such, it gives us a kind of challenge around certain things. And the nakshatra it is in, but it will bring us insights when we've finished it. And Chitra is very creative and innovative. It loves freedom. It's independent and intellectual. It's artistic. It's dynamic. And it's one of the innovators of the nakshatras. And so this very much mirrors with what's going on for Saturn retrograde. The jury's out, and there's a sense of dissolution, possibly. I certainly know that where my Ketu is at the moment, and how it's been sitting on the nakshatras, has made me a little less driven. This is what it will do. It makes you a little bit less driven in an area that you might normally be driven in, but it's sometimes doing that through dissolution, okay? And it can bring deeper awareness from that latent, non-attached phase, okay? So it's going to be like that until early February, and it's really helped me make sense of some of the projects I'm working on and where I felt a little less driven on certain parts of my dharma. That's okay. It's I call it a reprieve. I call it a time to focus on something different in my chart, okay? And it's still ticking over, but I just don't have the zing that I might normally have, okay? Also, I will be mentioning that Saturn has been opposite Mars. This is the bottom of this slide. And this is, I think, this has also been making us feel this kind of constrained contractedness. Mars is this zeal, it's the commander, it wants to get things done, it's sitting in Leo, it loves being in Leo, it's got that drive. And interestingly, you know, Saturn as being kind of putting pressure on it. So I have felt days where I've literally felt Saturn's rings around me with certain things. And I've known to learn what Saturn feels like when it's moving through me and holding me back. And to know that that's important. There's a review taking place. Do not rush this thing. Saturn doesn't want you to do that. And I've spoken to other people who said July was a write-off for them again in terms of work. They didn't quite achieve what they were supposed to, because there's this kind of pressure of what to do, can't quite do, what to do, can't quite do. But this always serves a purpose. And what I would say the purpose of this is also to really help us to look at this interpersonal, ancestral, karmic stuff that's around the field with our Venus in retrograde. You know, the planets often create mechanisms for us to look at something. So if one is creating pressure, another is trying to create a state of looking at something or arising some conditions which make us rethink something. And so I feel that the mechanism of this is to halt us from our distractions of trying to jump ahead in something, to really understand this Venus retrograde, which is going to end pretty soon. Okay. So Venus is doing quite a lot of retrograding and in and out, and Gadanta karma around the journey between a water and a fire sign. And it's in Magha and Ashlesha nakshatras. So it's going to be retrograding from Leo back into Cancer. So there's this sense of determination and things like that. And in Cancer, you know, more about our nurturing. It's quite interpersonal. It's about motherhood, family life in that way, the home. And both Magha and Ashlesha have a capacity to work in the ancestral realm. And I really feel, again, this is this beautiful mechanism in place when we look at it in terms of the year lord in the Dreamspell calendar, where we have the self-remembrance key that has been up. And now we're in the surrender code. And so until early September, this is why so many people are like, oh my goodness, this pressure cooker, I just feel all these burdens coming up. I'm feeling my fibromyalgia is flaring up. Other people are having shaking incidents and all sorts of things. And people feeling dysregulated for no apparent reason. People are having flashbacks. People are feeling they've got to do epigenetic work. This is because we've got Venus, which is this thing about our interpersonal and our external world, over this portal that is a portal for the ancestors. Okay, so really make the most of this, because by early September, you know, you're seeing things are going to get more tangible. And yeah, it's also that the soup is really deep for the earlier part of the month, and then that aspect of Saturn and Mars is going to diminish from the 19th of August. And what's interesting, if you look back, is we start from around the 10th in the sacred calendar to go into, you know, that can be the releasing of the burdens. But, you know, the later part of that Trisena is coming to the higher awarenesses, and then we come into Nok, which is a lot more tangible and having a bigger idea. You then look 17th to 29th, so the 19th is right in that. We're moving things with more fearlessness. We're back on track, moving forward again. Okay, so if you have felt this sense of stasis and being paralyzed in what you feel you're supposed to do, just there you can see some timelines of how that may shift. So to recap, this is a time for more self-remembrance. Do step forward to do the ancestral work, because it's such a profound portal to do it. I'm seeing amazing breakthroughs for people doing it. We're doing a lot of work with the gene keys and soul surgery, and wow, it's so amazing what's happening. One thing I would like to say is that we tend to often go into a sense of victimhood with our ancestral work, and there are the destitute, you know, impoverished ancestors who lurk around. But please remember, that you all have the perpetrator somewhere in your field, that sometimes we also have had the ancestor who was a king who misused their power. And I was really meditating on this like a month ago when I was first starting to prepare this. And I was really thinking that this is a really good time. If you want to have a complete spectrum in your journey, yes, if there are beleaguered, wounded, poverty-stricken, ancestors around you, work with them, but also do have a think about, what about the ancestors who maybe had it really good but were never generous to the poor sorts of people, because there's a karma that's there in the field, okay? And I think a lot of people are always thinking about the poor me and the victimhood of what they've brought through from the ancestors, but sometimes we've also brought through the oppressive side of our ancestors. And I think it's something we need to look at, so that we can really look at our relationship to power, the patriarchy, the yang, and having a think about that as completing the spectrum to some degree will really help you in your journey of not just clutching to the victims, okay? So do keep doing the ancestor work. A lot is taking place in the ethers. It is indeed a potent time for weaving across space and time, as we can see with this monkey energy, this night energy. We have so much that can take place. Time is not linear. We are able to work across timelines right now. It's so, so exciting. And just remember that, any moment it feels too much, remember it is impermanent. Just remember that from the middle of the month, everything is going to become a lot more tangible. Okay, so thank you all. It's been great to be able to finally share this. Do comment and subscribe. Do comment how this month is for you. I'd love to hear how you've been. And I look forward to bringing lots more non-dual astrology readings to you in the coming months when things come back online a lot more. Take care, everybody. Ciao, ciao.